Hello everyone. Anything to anybody?
Hello.
Woo-wee. I'm struggling today, man. The hills are getting me today. But I was trading messages with somebody who holds Apple. And I think Apple reports earnings the beginning of November, November 3rd. Right, guys? November 3rd. So, they are a buy and hold person and have no desire on losing the shares. And so what I said to them is, I said, what you can do if you have no desire to sell shares, well, there's a couple different things, but one of the things that I told them about is, if you look at the options chain on Apple, okay, and if you look at the week that they're reporting, look at the implied volatility, which is labeled IV, and you'll see it doubles that week. Because what happens is the market makers don't know where Apple's going to go, and you typically see a larger IV so that they can compensate for any let me just get out of the way here. They can compensate for any unexpected moves, but that's another topic. But basically what you can do, since it's so close, and I forget what the number is off the top of my head, I think Apple is approaching 180. So you could sell a put, pick a number, and as long as the price of the share does not drop below there. Now, when you sell a put, you're basically taking the other side of a trade, and it means you can get exercised at any time, and they can take your shares. Oh, I'm sorry, they can give you shares when you sell a put. When you sell a covered call, they take your shares, but I don't want to confuse the issue. So that scared them. They're like, so I'd have to buy more shares at, and I said, yeah, but you buy it at the price that you name. So let's say you say, I'll buy more shares at 175. Is Apple going to go below 175? Maybe. I don't know the future. But if it does, and you're a buy and hold type of person, you're riding that ship down anyways. Your shares are going to be worth 175 if you just hold them. So what this allows you to do, depending how aggressive you want to be, you can sell the 175 shares. Let's say Apple on earnings drops to 165. So the price the next day is 165. You buy shares for 175. Yeah, it stinks, but guess what? If you had done nothing, your shares would be worth 165. But if you sold a put, your shares will now be worth 165, but you might pocket five bucks per share. So it's like an unexpected dividend. And I'm being more adamant about this, is the days of buy and hold, that's done, man. It's gone in most cases. So be actively managing your shares. They should always be making you money in one form or another. If they're not, then if you have a small position, then who cares, I guess. But okay, any questions, ask below. I strongly encourage people, take control of your own destiny. I just want to interject so nobody gets confused. I already talked about selling covered calls in the last video about putting on a hedge. Me personally, I'm a very aggressive trader. So I'm not afraid of rotating shares, losing them, buying them, losing them, buying them, and making a percentage on every sale. So whenever I own shares, now an option is typically 100 shares. You need 100 shares per contract. So one contract of Apple would be 100 shares of Apple, so that's a lot of money. So you have to have a little bit of coin to even be trading that stock, unless you're just trading the options on it. You know, not talking about holding shares. So depending on the percentages, the ROI, what your desired return on your investment is, me personally, if I have 100 shares of anything and I can get a decent return on selling a covered call, which means I'm giving somebody the right to buy those shares from me at the price that I name. So if I owned Apple shares and the price is 180, I could say, no, I'm not going to sell my shares unless it gets to 200. Now, the amount that they will give to you is much less than if I said 185. There's a strategy called an iron condor. And an iron condor, basically what it does is it sells the high and it sells the low. And its rationale is when it gets to the expiration date, whatever date that is, the stock can only be at one price. So Apple, let's say Apple stays at 180 on November 3rd or November 10th. That's the price. So if you set your options, if you sell a contract above that price and below that price, well then they both can't be wrong. And if you have to buy 100 more shares, it's simple. When you are exercised and you take possession of those shares, you don't even have to wait. You sell your existing shares. And then those 100 shares will replace your current shares. So you're swapping them. And people are like, well, why would I want to do that? Why? Because you're being paid. You're being paid. Somebody is paying you for those shares. So it's a beautiful thing. Especially in a bull or a bear market where the thing's either going up or going down. You set that strategy and you're rotating. And what it does is you're earning between 1 and 5% typically in additional income. So on a $100 stock, that's an extra $5 on the stock price. Not bad. Not bad. And when you rotate it, now markets ebb and they flow. It's like an oscillator, the sine wave, right? They go up, they go down, they move, they change, money rotates. So when the money is in your rotation and you can make good premium, you have to take it. Because in 3 or 6 months, the market will shift and all of a sudden you won't be able to get the same bid for your stock. Like what's going on with some of the metals and the miners right now. Some of these miners, I remember, I'll never forget it, back on February 1st, 2021, silver shot up, I want to say silver shot up like $10 in one day, $5 or $10 in one day. And I remember, because I called Dan. Dan and I always seem to be on the phone when these things happen. It happened with oil when oil was at zero. And then when First Majestic, it went from like $15 up to $30. We're watching it. The thing's going tick, 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 tick. And I was like, long story short is if somebody doesn't train you how to trade, how are you going to know? How are you going to know? I mean, you can read a book and people learn differently. Like I learn by doing. Give me a tool, put it in my hands, let me work with it, then I understand it. I mean, if you start putting this drawings and calculations on a drawing board, I'll be like, okay, well, let's see it in action. So a lot of times with these various strategies, I mean, I'll play with like $1 or $10, you know, I'll play with it. And then I get to see how it operates. But you cannot be afraid of these things, and you cannot let your fear keep you away from learning these things. Okay, so I hope that clarified it instead of making it more confusing. Wow, I am struggling today. Wow. See ya. Live long and prosper.